In this video, we are going to determine whether the two straight lines through these 2 points and these 2 points are perpendicular to each other. Remember that two straight lines are perpendicular to each other if the product of their slopes is negative 1. Let's say this line, which has a slope m1, and this line slope m2 are perpendicular to each other, meaning that the angle between them is 90 degrees. Then the product of their slopes m1 times m2 is going to be negative 1. This is the condition for two straight lines being perpendicular to each other. That means if two straight lines are perpendicular to each other, the product of their slopes is going to be negative 1. And conversely, if the product of the slopes of two straight lines is negative 1, then the lines must be perpendicular. Sometimes we write this as m1 is equal to negative 1 over m2, assuming that m2 is not 0. So m2 is not equal to 0. In that case, one slope is negative reciprocal of the other slope. So m1 is the negative reciprocal. Reciprocal of m2 is 1 over m2. Negative reciprocal is when you put a negative in front of it. So two straight lines are perpendicular to each other if the slopes are negative reciprocals of each other. Now let's go ahead and find the slope using the slope formula. I am going to call the slope of this first line m1 and the slope of the second line m2, and here is my slope formula: y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So let's call this one x1 y1, x2 y2. If I use the slope formula, my first slope m1 is equal to y2 minus y1. y2 is 1 minus y1 is negative 4, so it's going to be 1 minus negative 4 divided by x2, which is negative 2, minus x1, which is 2. So that's going to give me m1 is equal to 1 plus 4, because two negatives is going to make it positive, divided by negative 4, negative 2 minus 2, which by the way gives me m1, not m2. m1 is equal to negative 5 over 4. Now we go ahead and find m2. So my m2, I'm labeling this one x1 y1 for m2, x2 y2. So my m2 is gonna be y2 minus y1. y2 is 2. 2 minus y1 is negative 2, which is this. x2 is 4 minus x1, which is negative 1. And if I simplify it further, I get m2 is equal to 2 plus 2, because these two negatives is going to make it positive. And in the denominator, the same thing, two negatives going to make it positive, 4 plus 1, which tells me m2 is equal to 4 over 5. Now let's compare these slopes m1 and m2. Obviously m1 is not equal to m2. That means these two straight lines are not parallel to each other. However, let's see whether they are perpendicular to each other. Remember, if they are perpendicular to each other, then the product of their slopes must be negative 1. So m1 times m2 is equal to, m1 is negative 5 over 4 times m2 is 4 over 5. Now this 4 and 4 cancels, 5 and 5 cancels, that gives me negative 1. So we just showed that the product of the slopes of these two straight lines is negative 1. Which, by the way, is the condition for perpendicularness. Therefore, these two straight lines are perpendicular to each other. I hope that this discussion was helpful. Thank you very much.